Hi, folks, and welcome back to another episode of our podcast, When I Became a Gator. I'm your host, Phillip Cheng, and our podcast focuses on the stories of various alumni around the country and the hopes of bringing closer the Gator Nation, one alumni at a time. Tonight, our guest is Brian Fung. Brian, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me on here. It's an absolute honor. I feel like it's been a while since I've seen you just a couple months ago now.
Yeah, it has been a while. I think it's been a while since we were at UF and then, random reunions that happen, all over the country, it seems like. So
yeah, it's definitely been a while since we've been at UF. Just had a little flashback there. Yes, absolutely.
For our listeners, Brian, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you studied, and a little bit about what you did after you graduated?
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Brian. I was born and raised in Florida. I love being a Floridian, originally from Deerfield Beach, Florida. Mm-hmm. I went to college pursuing originally a degree in engineering. And I really like that techie stuff, but actually ended up switching into pharmacy. That was a thing back then. It was like 2005, 2006. Everyone was switching into pharmacy. And I switched in my end of my first year, beginning of second year. Mm-hmm. And absolutely loved UF, everything about it. Though I spent a lot of my time playing games. Right, the first
what
years.
Was popular back then what you were playing?
You know what? I think World of Warcraft came out in 2004 in the beta. I was playing in the beta, and then all I played was World of Warcraft all the time. So,
oh wow, nice.
Definitely World of Warcraft. I'm surprised I didn't fail out of college, to be honest.
You know what also came out during our time was Guitar Hero.
Oh, that's right. That was a very addicting game too.
Very addicting, yes.
Lots of hours on Guitar Hero.
And so after you played a lot of games, got your degree in pharmacy, or you went to pharm school at UF too?
Yeah, so I loved UF so much. I was like, you know what? I need to stay here because I thought about going to other pharmacy schools, but I was like, UF really is my top choice. Yeah. So I stayed for another 4 years and I did pharmacy school at UF.
Very nice. And then where did you go afterwards?
So after pharmacy school, I did 2 years of residency in pharmacy, ended up specializing in pharmacy informatics, and then ultimately took a job as an informatics pharmacist in Minnesota. But now I live in DC and I work remotely for my job in Minnesota. Very
nice. I think one of the perks of COVID is to live wherever you want to live and still work in sort of a, I don't know if Minnesota is a rural place. I've never been there, but maybe you can describe it a little bit to the listeners who've never been to Minnesota like me.
Well, the place I was at just happens to be a really, really tiny city. If you're in like the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, is actually quite nice, minus the weather. But I was in Rochester, Minnesota, which I typically describe as it's the hospital, and then we're surrounded by cornfields. It was kind of rural. There wasn't that much to do, unfortunately. But I was there for a job, and then with remote work opportunities, I ventured out to DC.
Very nice. And I know it's COVID, but how's it been so far in DC?
We're very fortunate here that DC, we haven't seen as many cases as other places. Like I know some of the other cities have just been swamped with it. I think we've been very fortunate that the case counts are not that high. So relatively good in a sense. But everyone here is still masking and social distancing. Yeah. So I think I'm very fortunate to be here at this time. So DC is relatively good.
Nice. Oh, that's always nice to hear.
Yeah.
So Brian, during your time at UF, was there a moment or maybe an experience that you had that made you feel like, oh, I'm truly a Florida Gator, or a time where you felt most connected to UF?
There's many of those moments. I think that some of the most memorable or energetic moments that I had was definitely when we were in the midst of those football games. Like we were very fortunate. Like
we were.
Absolutely, right? We had the back-to-back basketball championships 2006, 2007, and then we had Tebow and Chris Leak, 2006 and 2008. It was Oh my goodness. It was fantastic of an opportunity. I think like right after we won those national championships and being on I'm kind of sad. I don't remember that street.
University, yeah.
University. And then everyone just closes the roads
Oh,
and
that's
everyone's
right.
jumping on trees. I mean, everyone's being rowdy, but there was so much school spirit.
Yeah.
And it felt good because we were also with friends.
Yeah.
Being with good people and celebrating a win and being really proud that we were from UF because we were on the national stage and it was just so amazing. So all of that really made me feel like at that time I was a Florida Gator.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember those moments too. For our listeners who were there during that time, I'm sure you remember sort of the excited chaos that happened off of University Avenue after we won in 2006 and 2008. And for our younger listeners or listeners who are older who didn't get to, unless you're from 96, because I think we won in 96. Yes. But it's definitely the golden age of UF football was during the time that we were there.
So amazing. I mean, we would see Tebow always passing.
Riding his moped.
Yeah. It was, and he was so nice about it too. So it was fantastic years, best times ever.
Yeah. Right now UF, the students, I believe they have I know they have some type of remote learning for sure, and I'm not sure if it's a sort of a flex or a hybrid type of model, but what advice do you have for students who are going through this time and in general?
Yeah, so it's definitely more difficult now, to meet people and build a bond being virtual in a lot of those settings. But in general, just I think it's important to be proactive in reaching out because I think it's just harder to meet people organically. Yeah. Like let's say after class or during class, you message people say, hey, do you want to meet up maybe on another Zoom call afterwards? But just, I think a lot of the times now in virtual settings that we're lacking that personal connection with people. And I think being in class is great, but then like building those bonds outside of class, albeit in a virtual setting, is still very important because the college friend or the friendships you make during college honestly becomes some of your closest friends for life. But be proactive, reach out to people. I think it's hard to take that initial step, but once you start doing it, it becomes routine and that's good. I definitely encourage students to be as social as possible because I know I was not. So be social, go network with people and just make friends.
Yeah, for sure. And do you have any shout outs to people or perhaps could be professors or even places on campus that really were influential at your time, influential on you at your time at UF?
Well, I have to say maybe place and a person or persons. Places, there were two. One was Southwest Gym. I made an effort to go there at least once a day, sometimes two. It was, I don't know why, it was just a thing back then.
It was a thing.
we all loved to go. All the Asians went to go play basketball, stuff like that. But the other place was Library West. And some of us called it Club West because no one was studying. But I loved Library West. I was there all the time. And it was nice because they had a Starbucks in there. So I drank.
That's right.
Yeah. So those are the places.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved them. And then for people, I think that Hui Huynh, I'm sure you're familiar with Hui. One of the most influential guys I ever met. I saw him, I think, when I first was a freshman, and how inspirational he was. He honestly changed my perspective on so many things because he got rejected from dental school multiple times, and I talked to him during those years, and he was just like, he told me about his resilience and his persistence and trying to do it over and over again, and it was very inspirational, the stories he told. And to be honest, I also got rejected for my first time applying to UF Pharmacy School. So Hui was so inspirational. And if anything, I would say is find a mentor, find someone you look up to. And Hui was that guy for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was also from Polk County, where I'm from.
Did not know that.
Definitely a hometown brother, and God rest his soul. Wow, thank you for sharing all that you were able to tonight, Brian. I think that our listeners definitely, they probably wish they went to school during the time that we did to experience all the football championships.
Yes.
But I hope they also got something away, took something away from your advice for them to be more social, and not just because it's COVID, but in general, because as you said, students who you make friends, and they're the people who actually turn out to be lifelong friends. And so that's awesome. If you'd like to be on our podcast, just send us an email to ufasianalumni@gmail.com or reach out to us on social media. Thanks everyone, and go Gators.